Now, on BBC Radio 4, David Shaw Parker reads the title story from Helen Simpson's collection, In-Flight Entertainment.
Come fly with me, let's fly away.
After all that nonsense at Heathrow, it came as particularly welcome to find himself upgraded to first class. This hadn't happened to Alan before, and he looked around him with beady pleasure. Business class he was used to, club class and premium economy and what have you. The extra 8 inches was a lifesaver when you were 6 foot plus. But not first. Until now. His champagne was in a real glass rather than a plastic facsimile. It made a difference. He had way more room to stretch his legs, and on a 9-hour trip to Chicago, that counted for something, especially after a 4-hour delay. The big armchairs were ranged in curved couples, like Victorian love seats. His own faced forward, while the old guy opposite had the window seat of this pair, its back to the cockpit. They were near enough to converse if they chose, but so far hadn't done so, which suited Alan just fine. The other first-class passengers were mainly business types like himself, or much older men. No women, unless you counted the air stewardesses. His own stopped and smiled at him fondly, so he took another sparkle-filled glass from her tray. He could get used to this. Yes, really quite old. The passenger just across the aisle from him, for example, he must be 80, if he was a day, and not looking too good on it either. He couldn't seem to settle. He'd just pressed the button for more attention. Alan couldn't help but notice. He was going to enjoy this flight. It's being up in the clouds, he thought as the champagne kicked in. It's being in transit. I'm where it's at. The screen on the swivel arm in front of him showed a shrunken globe with a jewel of an aeroplane, the one he was on, just clear of the tiny triangle which represented the UK at the start of its journey across the pond. He felt unaccountably moved. The end of the world was nigh. That's what the Heathrow nutters had been shouting, basically. Global warming. He was sick of the sound of it. He only had to see those words and a massive wave of boredom engulfed him. The old guy across the aisle was making quite a fuss now. More of the cabin crew seemed to have converged on him. An announcement came over the sound system for any doctor on board to please come forward. Now, for the first time, Alan's opposite number in the curving double seat leant across and spoke to him. "I can't see what's going on from here," he rasped. "It's the old guy in the next seat along," hissed Alan. "He seems to be in some sort of trouble. Oh, look, here's someone. Must be a doctor." The cabin crew stuck determined smiles on their faces and started to do the rounds, taking orders for dinner. 4 hours delay, volunteered Alan, thanks to those jokers at Heathrow. Alan Barr, by the way. "And I'm Jeremy Lees. Yes, those anti-flying protesters. A waste of time." "Complete time wasters." "I suppose so," said Jeremy. "What I meant, though, was it was a waste of their time. They're not going to change anything." "Exactly. It's nonsense, isn't it, this global warming stuff? Trying to turn the wheel back. Half the scientists don't agree with it anyway." "Actually, I think you'll find they do. They've reached a consensus. I ought to know. I was one of them. No. It's not nonsense, I'm afraid. The world really is warming up." These finger-wagging types were getting everywhere, thought Alan. Even his own firm had been pressured into signing up for some carbon offsetting scheme recently. £19.50 extra it had cost for this trip to Chicago. Plant a bloody tree, all a big contrick. "So, how long have we got?" he demanded with a tinge of belligerence. "Well," replied Jeremy, "they were saying 30 years, but now it's looking more like 20, or even 15. Still, that should see me out." "Old bugger," thought Alan. "How self-centred can you get? The children will be in their 20s. "The thing is, the nearer you get to a mountain, the less of it you see," said Jeremy obscurely. "Like old people and death." Enough of you, thought Alan, nodding at him and donning his headphones. He looked around again, uneasy. It's getting serious over there, he said, pulling off his headphones and addressing Jeremy in a low voice. Oh, said Jeremy. They've rigged up a drip, said Alan. It all looks a bit DIY. One of them shining a torch. This is your captain speaking, came the aircraft sound system. Unfortunately, as some of you are already aware, one of our passengers has been taken ill and needs more help than we can provide on board. Accordingly, we've arranged to land at the next available opportunity in order to provide this passenger with the medical attention he needs. We will be landing at Goose Bay in approximately 2 hours. Goose Bay? Said Alan. Where the hell's that? It's in Labrador, said Jeremy. Alan swore softly to himself. 4 hours delay at Heathrow, now this? He had to give his presentation in exactly 13 hours' time. Great. He turned to the air stewardess at his side. I'll have the Swiss white chocolate parfait, please, with the Tayside raspberry coulis. There was a flurry across the aisle, and Alan craned his neck to make out the doctor arming himself with some sort of wired machine. Alan saw the old man's hands fly up in the air and come down again. What's that? He asked the air stewardess with a jerk of his head. She shook her head and moved away. That'll be the defibrillator, said Jeremy. Alan realised she'd failed to take his pudding order and wondered if he could call her back. Probably not a good idea under the circumstances. He saw the doctor shaking his head and rolling down his sleeves. Did that mean... Apparently it did, because a tartan blanket was being pulled up over what must now be the corpse. Jeez. Made you think. Jeremy, he said after a few seconds, leaning across, something's happened over there, I think. Jeremy looked up from his book. He peered at Alan. He's gone, then, he said. It's incredible, said Alan. I don't believe it. Right beside us. Oh, I've seen it before on aeroplanes, said Jeremy. It happens more than you might think, particularly in first class. If they're taken ill in economy, they're brought through here because there's more space. It's quite a cause of bad feeling sometimes. How so? Asked Alan, shocked. Well, people don't want to pay out several thousand for a ticket and then find they have to sit beside a dead body all the way to Hong Kong. The poor guy, he said reprovingly. Once stationary on Goose Bay's landing strip, it became apparent that they would be stuck there for quite some time. A coroner had to be found before the body could be taken off the plane, and tracking down a coroner in Goose Bay in the middle of the night was proving difficult. We're in the middle of nowhere, snapped Alan. Ridiculous. Look at that weather. Don't tell me you still believe in global warming. It's freezing out there. It's not a question of belief, said Jeremy. It's happened. It's happening. Not out there, snorted Alan. Not from what I can see. In fact, someone really should declare a global state of emergency, given the evidence. The scientists are quaking in their boots. There's your so-called evidence, said Alan, now in an evil temper. Look at that snow. So what do you think will happen? No, I don't want to bore you. I'm asking, pal. Oh, in that case. Well, it'll all get very nasty. We'll be swimming round the Statue of Liberty's torch, sneered Alan. I saw that film. No, said Jeremy. Crops will fail first. Food shortages will kill off 4/5 of the population, along with malaria and bird flu and so on. There'll be warlords and fighting in the streets. By the time you're my age, you'll be beating them off your vegetable patch and your last tins of tuna. Oh, cheers, said Alan. And what about you? You don't seem too worried yourself, I can't help noticing. No, agreed Jeremy. I think you'll find most people over 70 are the same. At some level, we're banking on current fuel stocks to see us out. By the time rationing comes in, it'll all be someone else's problem. So, you're all right, Jack, snorted Alan. I'll tell you when I stopped trying to change things. It was when I realised that nothing was going to stop people flying.
Oh, are you saying I shouldn't fly now?
I don't care what you do, said Jeremy peaceably. I don't care about you. You don't care about me. We don't care about him. He indicated in the direction of the dead man. We all know how to put ourselves first, and that's what makes the world go round.
Just my luck, thought Alan, to get stuck with a moralising old wise guy in the middle of nowhere.
At this point, the coroner arrived, scowling and dishevelled, trailed by 4 big sullen stretcher-bearers in plaid shirts. They were up in the air again. About bloody time. Less than 2 hours until he set foot on American soil. He couldn't wait.
What I can't understand, Alan said unpleasantly, leaning over the seat divide, with all due respect, Jeremy, is why are you even on this plane? If you think flying's so bad, why are you here?
Might as well be, shrugged Jeremy. Once I realised the world's going to hell in a handcart, I thought, might as well.
Oh, said Alan, taken aback.
Plus, said Jeremy slowly, I wouldn't mind joining the other Mile High Club. Eventually.
What do you mean?
Said Alan, gawping at him. The one our friends just joined, said Jeremy. A more distinguished way to go, don't you think? Nearer to heaven, and so on.
Oh, said Alan. He couldn't believe his ears. He couldn't think of anything to say.
He stretched his eyes at Jeremy, then gave a weak smile and feigned sleep behind a padded satin eye mask. Coffee, sir? He took a cup before he was quite compos mentis, and then sipped as he stared, sore-eyed, at their on-screen progress. The aeroplane jewel was nearly at the gold dot marked Chicago.
All the alarmist crap that old creep Jeremy had been coming out with, it just seemed like a fairy story now. He wasn't a 6-year-old to believe in magic. Nothing but hot air.
It was a relief when the announcement was made that they were approaching their destination. At last, he thought. This journey had been a nightmare. When all was said and done, though, they'd made it, and he was still in time to give his presentation, even if there wouldn't be any chance to drop his bags off first at the hotel. He tended to look forward to the seat belts on preparations for landing. He approved of how, flight's end in sight, the cabin crew became newly purposeful and bright-eyed. Yes, his spirits usually lifted during the descent, and he would have expected to feel extra jubilant towards the close of this particular protracted crossing. Right now, though, as they made their approach to O'Hare, he noticed that his spirits were not in fact responding with their usual ebullience. No. Instead, he felt somehow unnerved. He had a weight around his heart, a nasty, sinking feeling, which was not like him at all.
Come fly with me, let's fly, let's fly. Pack up, let's fly away.